Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production. Now available on Spotify, PodcastOne.com, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Amazon is hiring near you. Earn a competitive wage and start as soon as 7 days. No resume or experience required. Health and safety are a top priority with all of our roles and sites, and Amazon is taking precautions in our buildings to keep people healthy. Go to Amazon.com/apply. That's Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
The way forward, resiliency is going to win. Those that understand how to be present with others are going to win. And those that are able to not leverage themselves in any facet of their life, but can stay over their hips. And that's the present moment balance that you and I are flirting with. We're going to win.
Don't you know that the music should be solemn?
This is Theo Rossi. This is Theory. All right. Now that I live in Austin, I'm allowed to say that McConaughey line. Today's show, today's sit down, today's theory is one that I'm pretty excited about. It's with Dr. Michael Gervais. And Dr. Michael Gervais is a high-performance psychologist. He works with Olympians, world record holders, Fortune 100 CEOs, all different athletes, artists. He has a company with the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, called Compete to Create. And what really got me to him is he has this incredible podcast called Finding Mastery. And I had been wanting to speak with him for a while. He's just an incredible resource for your mind, body, and spirit. Stick around at the end, because at the end, I'm going to tell you about something after you hear him and I's conversation, a little challenge, I think, for all of us, because I got called out. And if I get called out, you guys all get called out. All right, let's go. Thanks so much for doing this. This is a show that's super important to me, and I definitely think all the people that have, really kind of joining us on this theory journey. And the way we actually kicked off the show and why this is so important to have you on, we kicked it off where I did a kind of a solo episode on fear and anxiety. And it was just really pertinent to the way life is now, but also in general, right? My question to you is, you work with these you're doing all this high performance stuff. And as someone in my other industry, with acting and producing and a couple other companies we own, and I'm fortunate to be around people from all over and all types. My question to you is, before we get into the regular stuff of what's going on the day to day, is how are the high performance people who are so used to problem solving and having a tangible goal in front of them, how are they handling something like this with the uncertainty of all this?
Good question. And I'll put it right back on you. How are you doing it? Right. So just because some athletes or some folks that I work with and the public knows doesn't mean they're different than us. Mm-hmm. They have a skill that is extraordinary and it's valued, meaning that valued in a way that people want to watch it. But I'll tell you who I'm impressed by: single moms, mm-hmm. single dads. Mm-hmm. The creativity there, the resiliency, the passion, the purpose, the clarity of goals, the work ethic, and like I said, the creativity, mm-hmm. To be able to make this thing work under these times. So I appreciate your question, because there is some subtleties, that I think would be good to talk about. But I just want to level set, like, we're all in it in a way that we're trying to figure out the new norm. And these, we're all in it together, and new norms and uncertainty, and they're buzzwords, certainly right now. But I want to flash back, let's say 8 weeks ago, pre-COVID, as we might, start talking about things, is if you were to ask me, what are the main culprits for human potential, main constrictors of human potential? I'd list off a couple of them. They're still present now, right? Which is fatigue, fear, a la anxiety, mm-hmm. Fear of what? We can talk. I'd like to talk about that with you. Mm-hmm. And people not knowing what they're truly capable of. And if if you knew what I knew about humans and what it takes for them to explore the edges of their capacities, you'd say, hot damn, you're exactly, yes. Like, why are we not living more freely, more eloquently, more gracefully, more artistically, more whatever that, the characteristics that somebody might value in their life? Why are we not doing it that way? Fear and fatigue and a not knowing of what we're capable of. So if you flip that on its head right now, Theo, is that let's go back to the original question that you asked, and the extraordinaries, whoever comes to your mind, when you think about the extraordinaries, the men and women who have not only done the extraordinary, but internally are extraordinary. Neither of those come without building a bridge across a rapid that is hostile and dangerous. I mean, this is not for the faint of heart. Mm-mm. And they are better athletes. Let's just do athletes right now. They are better at uncertainty than many of us because they practice it. They prepare for it. Let's use the NFL. I've been, as you know, with the Seattle Seahawks for the last 9 seasons. Mm-hmm. And it's an easy metaphor, like Sunday is the game day. And today is our game day, right? So every day is our game day. It is for them too. It's just that Sunday is the opportunity for a unique kind of test. Mm-hmm. We've got highly skilled people across the line with your highly skilled crew, and we're going to test our skills. Okay. So they practice and prepare all week for the uncertainty. And what do? Is they refine, like in a hypersensitive way, they refine their technical skills, their physical skills, and their mental skills. And then they go test them, and then they learn, and then they go back to the drawing board and reimagine, how can I get better technically, physically, and mentally? Then they test themselves, and then they reimagine and go back and do it again and again. And that we're looking for this rapid hockey stick arc of progression. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is what the fundamental foundation looks like in anyone who is trying to become their very best.
For sure. And I'm fortunate enough, one of my best friends, a 10,000-yard rusher. He's now an actor. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's an incredible, running back in the NFL for years. Thomas Jones, we did a show together, and him and I have had a lot of talks about this. I think what's really interesting, we were actually talking this morning, is that with a game day, you're going in. You have a game plan. You go through your playbook. You work and you have a goal in front of you, right? With this, we're all searching every day through news, through any voice that we can hear for what is something we can put in our calendar or put in something that we can go to game day, right? And what I've heard you say multiple times, and I really, really do appreciate that's so important, is that we have to treat every day like game day, right? We have to prepare for this day. So what I've told people is keep a schedule, try to stick to it. Obviously allow for improv when you have little kids in the house and all that, but you're trying to keep to schedule. Rest. Don't get overwhelmed. Meditate. Do whatever it is for you, treating every morning that you're waking up like game day. Does that seem maybe ridiculous with not knowing the end result, or is it similar?
No, you're on it. So let's double click on that, because I think it's like you're saying something that's super important. So if we double down on that, I want to toggle if we can. We'll toggle up and then we'll double click under. Okay. So what you're saying is like, have a frickin' plan. Like get your some order in your life. That's really good for better than 50% of the population. But there's a whole segment of the population that they thrive on spontaneity. They thrive on not knowing. They thrive on the quote unquote chaos. But for them, they revel in it. It's like I come alive. And so a structure and schedule for them is a bit harder. Mm-hmm. So for people like you, like your community is like, yeah, structure, schedule, that's good. And then I want to just go do some context, and then I haven't yet double clicked or
please.
But some context is, in the martial arts, we talk about understanding form to break form. Mm-hmm. Know structure to break structure. And, while it is really important to have structure to learn anything, the ultimate aim is to break, to create, to make a departure from the structure, to innovate. And that is reserved for people that have a great command of skill. Okay. So now let's go back to your question about wake up every day and have a structure. I'm about it, just so we're clear. I am about that. And I also want to use the game analogy, which is we make, like in the NFL, there's two basic strategies. Let's script the first 10 plays is one strategy. And we're going to learn. We're going to see what happens. If we break one out, awesome. But we're going to go to school. GTS is one of the coordinators' phrases that we like. GTS, go to school, see what happens, see how the other team lines up, see how we look in certain formations. So that's like going in with a game plan. The other is there's no game plan. We know what we're going to do. We're going to be creative and we're going to get after it.
No feeling out process. Like the other one's a feeling out.
Yeah, but it's not scripted. It's still feeling things out, before you find some rhythms, but it's not scripted, if you will. Okay, so it's form and no form, to use your example, structure, no structure. The other piece that I just want to add to it is that independent of the strategy of the two things we just talked about, the game plan kind of goes out the window because you have to create as you go. And so that is micro decisions that are being made. And when micro decisions, available to all of us every day, micro decisions, when they're based on something that is sturdy, whether it's science, whether it's your commitment to knowing that you can do hard things, whether it is a spiritual framework, whether it's your community that has got your back and propping you up, whatever is sturdy that you stand on or are supported by, those micro decisions become more eloquent. If you don't have a framework, it's really hard.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, with acting, and I could use acting as one that's very, that I understand more after 20 years and figuring it out, is that every role that you're going towards is different, but as long as you have a similar pattern. So it took me years to develop a pattern to attack a character, let's say. Now it's like it starts with music with me, right? Where what would the character listen to? And I create playlists. And then, obviously it's what would he look like? And then I'm working in conjunction with the rest of the team to figure out how he would look, how he would walk. I'm going to make my decisions. But then all of that goes out the window when I get there, because the truth is I'm only as good as my dance partner. I have to figure things out. But my preparation, and I mentor a lot of young actors, my preparation for the moment allows me the ability to improv. It allows me the ability to play. Now, when I see people not come in prepared, any deviation throws them. And so I think that I'm one of those people that would rather be over-prepared, but you have to be able to get rid of it. Some people over-prepare and they can't get rid of it. And that's their stumbling block.
To me, yeah, we're saying the same thing. This is not a conversation about preparation. Preparation is hard work, and when I say hard work, and you and I are going to vibe, I imagine the same way, it's nauseating, the level of work we're talking about. The hard work is ridiculously hard.
Yes.
And it's really met at how well can you focus and stay in it when it's hard. That's really what we're talking about, whatever the craft is. And whether that craft is parenting or that craft is firefighting or it's acting, it's like when it's hard, because exploring your potential is not convenient. It's hard. It's a difficult thing to do. And right now, the people who are most resilient or become resilient, they're going to be okay. So resiliency is a psychological principle, and it's a really important one. And can I tell you a story, Theo?
Yeah, please. I'd love to.
So I'm fortunate enough to spend time at last quad with the U.S. national volleyball team, the women's national indoor team. I also did beach as well. Yeah. And Karch Karai, one of the greatest. I
know exactly who it is.
Yeah. I mean, he is flat out the legend, the most winningest. He's won gold.
I've seen the movie Side Out. I know what's going on. He was I know all about it.
So he's won gold beach, he's won gold indoor, and he's won medals at the Olympics and Worlds coaching. I mean, legend. So we're talking about how to prepare the team for Rio. And so we had an early conversation, and then fast forward 4 years later, because I was with him the whole quad. We're down in Rio. We're in the thick of it. And he says, Mike, remember what we talked about 4 years ago? I said, which part? And he says, double barrel shotgun. I go, yeah. He says, this is it right now. I say, yeah. So his insight is that in all the places he's been where it's been really hard, and you're at, your capacities, and you're being pushed, and you're on the world stage. For him, it's world stage, but for us, it might be in our living rooms with a conversation with our loved ones, whatever. He says, nobody gets through this thing without facing down a double barrel shotgun. Nobody gets through it. And so can we prepare to face down those types of conditions? Can we maintain our cool and our poise and clarity of our mind? And I want to talk about how to do that with you. Like I want to give that stuff away because I spent my whole life.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Theo, like it is the impetus of why Coach Carroll and I built that.
Yeah. I know all about it. Compete to create. Yeah. I had to look into it. And Carroll's one of my favorite ever, just because I always say the eyes never lie. It's one of the things I learned in my other profession. And I believe you can tell a lot from a person, where some people are stone-faced and all that. It doesn't matter. The inside of their eyes never change. And with him, why I bring that up with him is, you buy into everything he says and his system and who he is as a person, because he's not lying. It's in there. And I love that.
When I first met him, I was like, this was 12 years ago. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is progressive. Like there's a lot of progressive ways and words and thoughts that he's using. And I thought, could he really be this positive all the time? Or is this like the first romance of a great relation, the beginnings of a great relationship? It is. He is so freaking consistent, whether it's getting, a heartache at the end of the Super Bowl, or it is like the celebration of preseason number 2 and, or it's whatever, like the consistency. So the eyes never lie. I love that phrase. I want to know where you learned it.
Yeah, no, I learned it in acting, because the truth is when I first started, I when I got the whole long story, which I talk about many times about, getting into this at a late age and literally doing the polar opposite of this in life. What happened when I got into acting is I started studying every single aspect of it, because if I'm going to be in anything, no matter what it is, in any of our other businesses or what we're in, I have to study every single part of it, because I want to know. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel in anything. I'm just trying to put my spin on the wheel. So I have to see throughout history how this was done and how this was made. Now, what happened was I was watching the greatest films ever. I was watching the greatest actors ever, from Paul Newman to Sidney Poitier to even the late Brian Dennehy, who just passed, to all these different people. And what I saw was when they're not saying anything, their eyes are telling me everything. So you can fake the funk and some people will buy it. But after a little while, I can look at you and everything's in here. And whether it be the insecurities or whatever, you can only mask for so long. And I have been ultimately blown away by that. And it's been something that I've been able to use in acting forever since now, and then also use it in my own acting out, because it's just been so now every time I look at people, and I have to, sometimes it's weird because you're staring in people's eyes when you're doing business and you're like, what's the real motive here behind this? But you can see everything. So
so this is perfect. Remember how I said I want to double click and toggle up? Let's toggle up for a minute, because right on the heels of that is that when people are consistent across conditions, it's likely because they're really clear about their philosophy, and they also are crystal clear about their purpose. Okay, so let's play this out, and I'll explain philosophy and purpose in a second. But if my purpose, my junkyard kind of purpose, whatever it might be today, right, as I'm walking through the junkyard, is really about being liked by other people, well, I'm going to say or do things to be liked. And when you look in my eyes, I'm going to be looking for approval. It's a disaster. It is a disaster for authenticity. We'll just stop there.
Which is what we keep talking about. Yeah.
On the philosophy side, a philosophy is something that it's your guiding principles. It's the way that you are able to clarify and commit to guiding principles. And everybody has a philosophy. It's informed the hat you put on today, the clothes you wear, the car you have, the car you didn't want to buy, whether you have a car or not, like the bus or not. So your choices, if you just look at the choices you have, it is your philosophy. Now, those that are the most powerful in the world, that's not a delicate statement. They are so clear about their philosophy and their purpose. They're two different psychological constructs, and they are crystal clear about them. So when you look at somebody's eyes and they have clarity of their philosophy, their guiding principles in life, they know the man or woman they're trying to become, and they have purpose. Anything outside of them is not going to dictate the internal. They're just going to roll with it and pivot, micro-choice and pivot, micro-choice and pivot. And it's not for approval. It's not at the flimsiness of wanting approval from others. It's the sturdiness of the principles that guide their thoughts, their words, and their actions. Those are the men and women I want to be around. That's the man I want to be.
So let me ask you one thing that I think about all the time, and I talk to people about a lot, and I really would love this. This means so much to me because I deal with it in my own life, and I talk to a lot of people who are in similar industries, whether it be athletic, sports, CEOs, whatever, and definitely in the entertainment world. Balance is a word we talk about a lot. Right?
Forget about it. I can't help you there.
Right. Exactly.
I cannot help you. Like this is the wrong conversation about balance.
Right. But listen to this. I've said, and it's just a weird theory of mine, but I said that somewhere along the line, something's going to suffer. For example, I'm not a big socializer because my career, I have 2 little boys under 5. I have a wife. I have multiple other businesses. So what maybe I did in my 20s and the way of going out and maintaining, a bunch of friendships, gone. It just doesn't happen, right? Between staying in shape and running every day or doing jujitsu and fighting and doing all this different stuff to keep my mental and my physical right, running businesses, being on the road a lot with acting, shooting in all different places, and having 2 children, what suffers is the social aspect of it, right? Okay. Now I have friends that play fantasy football. They're very social. They do whatever, but they're really out of shape, right? They don't do the working out part. They're good in their business. So what I've come to my analysis of this has been that something's gonna suffer. And I wish that I could say that wasn't true, and I've yet to be proved wrong by that. And just tell me, and I know, again, balance is a tricky one because it's like that all-in type stuff. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, good. I'll answer the feeling one first and then the thought part of it next. The feeling is that there's a sadness that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And the sadness is because I bought hook, line, and sinker this idea that balance is the essence, the quest of life. But what I've come to learn is that it is a mythical ridgeline. It's the oasis in the desert. I don't know anybody that has it. But what I do know, if we have a slight pivot, is that it is possible to be fully present everywhere you go. And when we are fully engaged and present with our children, our spouses, our friends, our work, when we're fully present, when we're on the mat, we're really on the mat, so to speak, that is how we end up getting the most out of life and giving the most into the relationships that we have.
So then our goal isn't balance, it's presence then in the moment we're in.
Yeah. And that is a trainable skill. So this thing about balance is like a tactical approach to life. I'm going to do 14 units of this. I'm going to do 6 units of this today and 18. And then I have this balance. It's the wrong tactic. I think.
I agree.
And so this is the thought, the feelings of sadness of trying to chase balance because it's left an empty meal. The skill of being present is a psychological skill. Anything that is a skill can be trained and enhanced. So how do we get into the training of being present? I've spent my whole life on it. I've learned from the science of it. I want to talk all about it. I've learned from the science and the innovations that happen on the world stage. And it's not hard. It's not hard to understand. It's not complicated, but it is incredibly challenging to do because it's really quite boring.
Yeah, and that's really funny because while you were saying that, I was thinking about, because again, I've been to multiple therapists. I have a great one now, and my wife and I, it's just something I've bought into and I've believed in my entire life because I think speaking things, even if no one's speaking back, just having someone there is an extremely important aspect. And hopefully a lot of people have a friend. It's even hard to do it to a friend and a family member. There's just certain things in therapy that I really believe in. Saying that, I've been working on presence a lot more. The problem with me is that I'm such a problem solver and I'm so goal-oriented in what I want that when I'm present in another situation, again, I have 2 little boys that are 2 and 4, about to be 3 and 5, that what I have to make sure is that when I'm with them, right? And I'm not thinking about that other thing that I want to finish.
That's what being present is about, right? And then let's go back up to purpose. If what you want, purpose is something down the road, you end up missing a bunch of what's here now. It's a 2-path goal. It's not like a 1-path goal. Like, I want to make a lot of money. That's not okay. I want to do a show. If that is the only path, then the second counterbalance will not have value. The second counterbalance is, what do you want to do with, who do you want to be? Right. So if you want to be in the narrative of your children, and I'm not saying this is you, Theo, I'm saying like, for many people, like if the narrative of your child when they are 18 is like, yeah, dad's a good dude. He's a grinder. He's a hustler. He was never really there for me. Work was way more important than, me. That, well, okay. But if you really want to have the narrative be like, no, dad was fully present. He was in it with me. God bless it. I feel loved. I feel like I can do anything. I can become the man that, I wanted to become. It's a whole different deal. And so it's that counterbalance between what do I want to do and who do I want to be? And if I could double click on this one.
Yeah, please.
I think that we have been sold a approach to life from the Industrial Revolution. So, for some of us, it's our grandparents. For some of it's our great-grandparents. The Industrial Revolution took place, and really what that means is machines came on board.
Yep, changed everything.
Yeah, and so the hardy ones, they came home, and they said, honey, we got something going on here. They're trying to take our jobs. And you know what the hardy one said? Nope, not taking my job. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be irreplaceable. I'm going to become that person that no machine can ever replace.
I'm going to become a machine.
Basically. So what happened is they said, I'm going to do more so that I can be more. And we saw that for generations. Then a recent generation said, like the millennials are like, what are you doing? You forgot about the being. So right now we're seeing the millennials at the tip of the arrow in elite sport and performance. And they're flipping the model right now. They're saying, I'm going to be more and let the doing flow from there. Okay. So what does that mean? I'm going to be more present, creative, grounded, authentic. I'm going to be more me in every environment, and the doing is going to be amazing. I'm not going to not work hard, but I'm flipping the model. That is incredible for freedom. You're still getting both. And the exponential output from the doing is incredibly heightened. So I think the way forward, as we're in this, the thick of a COVID pandemic experience that none of us have ever experienced, resiliency is going to win. And what does that mean? People that can deal with hard things, that can adjust and adapt. That's a psychological principle. Those that understand how to be present with others are going to win, because it's the human connection that we are craving, and it's going to become overwhelming in the near future. And those that are able to not leverage themselves in any facet of their life, but can stay over their hips, just like in a great skier, a great basketball player, any athlete. Can you stay over your hips? If you can stay over your hips, and that's the present moment balance that you and I are flirting with, in that present moment balance, we're going to win. And so those that are highly attuned to the emotional state and have the mental skills to adjust to it, and those that are able to not compromise and over leverage themselves financially to look good, right? Whatever those narratives are, those are going to be the ones that move through this thing in just the fashion that we'd hope. Yeah.
And it takes me back to when I was speaking with my brother-in-law that we touched on earlier, who's, FDNY. He said the other day, because he, him and my sister, I should say, were living in my mom's basement because they just bought their first house, and he's building everything from the dining room table to the kitchen walls. He's knocking down himself, and he's doing this while doing 24-hour shifts constantly. He couldn't go and live in my mom's basement anymore because my mom and stepdad are over 70, and there's health issues, and he doesn't want to put them at risk, because he's getting, he's in the thick of it all the time. And what I said to him was, he's hosing himself off in the garage and doing all this stuff. And I said, just tell me, we're told to stay away and you're going in. I said, what is that mindset? And he said, I'm just doing what I was born to do. I was born to help people. This is what I was here. I was put here for this. And it's not even a thought in his mind that it's just, that's what he's supposed to do. And he said to me after we had finished up, he said, listen, I'm okay if I get it. Like if I'm okay, I'll handle it, whatever happens. I just don't want my mom who's sick, or your mom, or your sister, or anybody. Like that's my biggest worry. So if I have to sleep in a closet, I'll do that. And I'm just like, there's such a steadfast belief in that. And I believe that you almost, and I see this in a lot of things, you have to have that. There is no plan B. I tell a lot of people this, like you have to have just that belief in this, and then everything else will come.
So Theo, I'd sharpen it by just kind of getting so super inspiring, right? And when you know your purpose, and most people don't, okay? And it's okay. That's a really hard thing to do. And I want to tell you a study that Harvard did, a 75-year study in a second. But those that know their purpose, they don't get faded. It's what we were talking about earlier. It's like, how did you climb Mount Everest with one foot? Well, that's like, that's just what I do. Well, why did you do that? Well, because I raise a lot of money for kids that don't have 2 feet. Those are the extraordinaries. Their purpose is clear. And let's get past like, I'm a trained psychologist, okay? And I'm trained in sport and performance, high pressured environments. But let's get past this narrative that there's a certain way to do you, and you shouldn't be motivated by A, B, and C, money, fame, recognition, and you should be motivated by something else. I'd like to talk about the science there, because it does hold up that the more durable approach is to be driven by a sense of generativity, doing well for others. But if you are primarily driven by money right now, okay, no worries. But why? What is your purpose? And if your purpose is just about you, it will fall short. There's a science to this, though. Everything I talk about is going to be stood up by research, right? Or the innovations that only happen in the frontier where things had to be made up, But that being said, is that there's a science of purpose. There's 3 components to it. Nobody can give it to you. It has to matter to you. Okay. The second is it has to be bigger than you. It's not just about you. It's something bigger. It's outside of you. And the third, it's got a future orientation. It's down the road just a bit. So if you get those 3 things in place, you can have this grand life purpose, or you could say right now, Theo, your crew right now could say, my purpose during COVID is, have a thin slice of purpose. Watch how that changes things.
Yeah, I found that anything in my life that I've done for the sole purpose of money, unless I really trained my brain into knowing what that was for and why I was doing it, and have told myself I'm doing it for this, so anything that happens with this, just know that that is your expectation, is the check or whatever that is. So you have to turn off all those other things of what you usually do it for, which is, for me, I've always said, and I say this a lot, is my purpose is the people and the people are my purpose. And that includes my family and all the people that, as someone who started from the bottom as an extra and came up and did whatever I'm apparently doing, is I believe that there's so much bigger. This isn't about me. And I tell every single person that it's not about me. This has nothing to do with me. While I love doing every single thing I do, it has nothing to do with me. But when I have gone for the money situation, which of course, especially with having 2 kids now, is there is some things that I have to switch off in my head, because my way of going, not my actions of going about it are different, just what's going on in my brain, let's just say. And sometimes it's even hard to verbalize that. But to go back into what you're saying is, what I tell people is, whatever your purpose is for doing something, great, as long as it's making you happy. And that's because if you're happy in what you're doing, whatever that is, it's going to then radiate on to every single other person in your life. What I'm seeing during this time we're in right now, Doc, is that a lot of people, especially in my business, who are used to having attention on them at all times and who need it, they need it. Whether it be they go to Coffee Bean or Starbucks to get somebody to recognize them, or they call their managers or agents who are going to lump all that, stuff on them. They need it, that they're starting to spin a little because they don't know their families if they have them, or they don't have that crew around them that tells them how great I am, and they're spinning a little. And I wrote recently on my Instagram, welcome to yourself, because here you are. How do you feel about you? And I think the first hill we should all try to climb is ourselves. You might never get there. It might be a winless game. But that's the first thing. So again, when I talk what you just said, and to, like you say, double click on that, is whatever your purpose is, that's okay if that is truly what your purpose is. Not what the world told you, or not what the advertisers told you, or your the person you were raised by told you, or whatever you think. Because I know some of the wealthiest, most accoladed people in the world, and they are miserable. And I know some of the least fortunate people in the world, most of them, and some of them are happy as can be. Where's that definition of why? It depends on what you want and what you're happy with. That's what I believe.
I love it. And then to kind of fold that back into some research from Harvard is that they were super crisp. They followed people for 75 years, and they wanted to understand fulfillment. And so they, had the same questions, and they put people in groups, like those that end up at the end of 75 years, end of life, being fulfilled, and those that said, no, I'm not so fulfilled. You know what the big difference was? There's two. There's five main, but two that I'm interested in. One was the most fulfilled people reported wrestling with the hard questions in life. Welcome to yourself. To your point, climb that hill. I love it, right? Like they wrestled. What does that mean? What are your guiding principles? Why are you here? What is your purpose? What happens after life? How are you going, your physical life? What happens? What are you going to do with your money? What is the purpose of relationships? What's the purpose of your craft? What's the purpose of, your business? Like fill in all the blanks. And those that wrestled, is there a God? Is there not a God? Is there afterlife? Is there not afterlife? Wrestle with them as a big time thing. The second is relationships. Those that were more fulfilled reported having meaningful relationships. So it wasn't about money. It wasn't about the castle. It wasn't about how many fans they had. They had meaningful relationships.
Yeah, and I think one thing to jump in there is what I love about that is it's not many relationships. See, some people hear meaningful relationships and they think they have to be friends with 40 people, or it's meaningful, and that could be just you and your spouse, that could be you and your children, that could be you and your, I've had the same best friend since I was 8 years old. It could be my relationship with all my dogs, and it's this meaningful in it.
Yeah. So here's the drill is that to have both of those, there's a process to become more grounded, less anxious, more present, so that you can do that work. Because if you're an anxious person, you can't see the other person because you're trying to take on and get your needs met. And if you're grounded and not anxious, you can see the other person, and then they feel calibrated with you. That's meaning. So that allows for depth. We can train our minds. We can develop strategies to be more grounded, to be more present, to be more confident even, to be more optimistic. That's a skill as well. All of those are trainable skills. And for me, here's a big takeaway. I suffered as a young kid. I was a good little athlete, not great. I'm not saying that. I was a good little athlete. And I didn't realize that there was this thing called the mind. This was like 1987. Mm-hmm. And I'm competing against men. My sport was surfing. On free surfing, I was fine. I could do the things I wanted to do, but when it came competition time, I was a disaster. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize that that's called anxiety. I didn't realize it, but it set me down this path to understand how can we free ourselves from within, and I thought I needed somebody else outside of me, which was the approval bit to get freedom. Like if I got the medal, if I got this, that, and the other, I was okay. But again, it's like this empty meal. So I just want to encourage people, like you can train your mind. And I know you're rolling on a regular basis. You're fit. Mm-hmm. You're probably spending 40 to 90 minutes, 5 times a week training, a day, 40, 90 minutes a day, something like that, 4 or 5 times a week.
7 actually, which is 7 days a week.
But I'd be so stoked, Theo, if you said, I'm doing 45 minutes a day of mental training. And I know you're not. No, I know
I'm not. What I try to do.
Most people are not because they don't know. They don't even know what it is.
No, and the truth is, I avoided it for so long. I got to tell you, for me, what I tell people now, and when people ask me, what do you do, and I say I'm doing self-inventory like I do every day. I'm always going back into my head and try to get back as far as I can in my past, or even if something comes up in a similar way and I go, how did that make me feel? So I know now how to operate and move forward down the Candyland board for the next one, right? So I'm always doing that self-inventory on my brain. The thing is that, and again, I've said this before, I'm a product of loss. I've lost so many people in my life, some horribly, some, just gone. And it's continued up until this day. And that's always made me reflective, not just of the situation, but of myself and how I feel. And then also I'm in a career where I'm dealing with feelings all the time. The characters I'm playing have these really crazy high emotional depths and different, things that I have to confront. So that's made me do that. But here's where I get it all wrong, and this is where you're right. I exhaust so much of that when I work that I don't do it on my daily.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And so when you were talking about, the inventory, I'm like, oh, that's it. Now, but there's a difference between setting aside, let's say 10 minutes for a meditation, or 10 minutes for a journaling, or 10 minutes for a therapy or a conversation with a wise man or woman. Like that 10 minutes is different than when you're eating and thinking, or you're driving and there's just that other compromising tension or attention shifting that kind of dilutes the intensity of that investigation. So I'm going to strike it. Maybe you are, and I have such high regard for actors, that what you guys do to understand and embody psychology is phenomenal. I think it is a high art.
Yeah, I have to. If I don't believe it, no one else will. So I have to touch it. Meaning that what I tell young actors is, and this is a crazy comparison, but it means something. In most of the films and television I've done, I've had to take people's lives. I've murdered someone in the films or television. I've never murdered someone in my life. Okay. I don't know what that feels like, but I have to believe it when I'm doing it. So I have to find an emotion that is what I would think like a microcosm of what that would feel like. So say it's road rage for a second. So I just had road rage, and in that moment I became enraged. I have to take that second that I had, and I have to remember it and bank it. And then I have to somehow accentuate it at 100 times in that moment. So I'm constantly studying my life, right? And it's the same with, whenever big things are occurring that you're doing on screen, because now I go back to where we started, which is the eyes never lie. If I don't believe it, no one will believe it. And that's what that forces you to do. Well, not anymore, but I was doing the float tank for a little while to really get in there and close it down for a good 45 minutes. My meditation is running.
I want to put a little dull kind of stick in your back,
Please do.
And just say, hey, dude, you're so primed for it. So if we follow good science, we'd say 8 minutes a day is minimal effective dose from a research standpoint, but cut that in half. Do 4 minutes.
I fall asleep every time I go to meditate.
Not 4 minutes. You won't fall. Not 4 minutes.
No, 4 minutes. I won't. No, I could do 4 minutes.
You could do 2.
I do those commercials when I'm watching the news. The commercial that says for 30 seconds, stay calm. I do that.
Good. Okay, listen. So that's 30 seconds. If you can do 2 of those, you got 1 minute. If you can do 1 minute, you can do 2.
Oh, I could do anything if I put my mind to it. With that, what I gotta do is what I find myself, and I bet you a lot of people that are listening feel the same way, is they hear meditate and everybody gets all weird. They're like, meditate? I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to do anything. And that's, and listen, my own wife says that. Everybody says that. I don't have time to do anything. But you just said something that's amazing before that I don't want to make sure that people didn't miss. We physically train our bodies, physically, all the time. We go and spend all the money on the supplements. We go and spend all the money on the physical. We do all this stuff for our physical. But our mental's the one running the whole physical operation, and we don't spend time in the mental. We don't self-inventory. We don't rethink things. We don't take, aspect of what's going on in our life and what certain things are doing to us, screen times, this, that. We don't do that because we go, well, I'm physically strong. But I have many cases in my life, I've had it myself, and I've seen many others that you push it as far as you can. There is effects, that there's impact that's going to happen. So how do you get a world that is so hard to deal with their mental to give as much time to their mental as they do their physical?
I'll tell you exactly how, right? people like yourself saying it's valuable, right? So you've got a tribe, you've got a community, you're a follower in some tribes and you're a leader in others. Okay. So you're an influence, and I don't like the word influencer, but you're an influence to some. So be about it. So when the cool person stands up and says, yeah, what are you talking about? I'm doing mindfulness every day. And they happen to have great talent. The other crew looks around like, what are you doing? And they say, yeah, what are you talking about? Like, of course I am. Oh, okay. So when Felix Baumgartner, you might not remember that story, but Felix Baumgartner, this is a project I was on at the Red Bull Stratos program. So Felix Baumgartner jumped from outer space at 130,000 feet.
Yes, I've seen the video a ton of times. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I was brought into that project. It was a game-changing project for me. I was brought into that program about 4 years in. And Felix had this is all public, so I'm not talking out of turn. He had claustrophobia. And so we did intense psychological work. And he did an unbelievable amount of inner work, mindfulness, breathing work, imagery, self-talk, controlling what you can, all the da-da-da-da. And when the cool man or the cool woman stands up and says, this is what I'm doing, other people follow suit. So we need more people that understand the value and then double click and say, well, where can I and how can I do that? And so I'll tell you another story. John Donovan is the CEO, he just recently left, of AT&T. And he and I are friendly. We're on the sidelines at the Seahawks. We seat 68,000 people. And I said, hey, this is a stadium of 68,000. And he says, and I said, how many people report to you? And he goes, okay. Wow. 4 of these stadiums.
Wow.
And so I context. Okay. And then, and this is okay for me to share because he talked about it on the Finding Mastery podcast.
So great.
Is that he says, yeah, thank you. So appreciate you. Yeah. He says, I started investing in meditation, mindfulness, and an inner journey 15 minutes a day. And then what I realized pretty quickly is I was 4x better. In the emails, the conversations I was having, I was significantly better from a small little 15-minute commitment. So I doubled it to 30. I was even better. I was more animated, more alive, more switched on, more connected. So I doubled it, an hour a day. And Mike, I was more connected. I was more vibrant. It's like my mind was completely aligned with the man I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I had this amazing relationships around me.
2 hours a day.
So I doubled it.
2 hours a day.
Yeah, he's up to 4 hours in the morning before he gets going. And you and I say, what? And then I remind you, he's got 300,000 people that report to him.
Right.
He's making big decisions.
Yes. And that's the thing. And see, my blue collar mind goes to where people, the outsider will go, yeah, well, I just don't have that luxury, right? I have to work all these hours. I don't have the time to do this and I don't have time to do that. And everybody, I think their first thought is to escape what could be a challenge, right?
It's right. So Theo, you got to tell him, you got to do it first, but then you got to challenge. You say, listen, Gervais challenged me to do 2 minutes. I did it. Unbelievable. And then I got to 8 minutes. If you can get to 8 minutes a day of doing what? Following one breath at a time, just doing that. I'll send you an audio file from our course. Okay. 8 minutes a day. All you do is just listen to that.
Oh, I'm on it.
Or follow one breath at a time. That's it. And what do you do when your mind wanders? You just go, oh, cool. I see you. Come on back. To what? Right. The exhale, the inhale, wherever you are on it. 8 minutes. The science is on point.
Yeah. No, since I was a little kid and when I had my first issue with anxiety, and I'll never forget it. Like when my father had left when I was like 9, and I remember this moment where I had this anxiety, and it literally sticks in my brain like a movie, where I was in my mom's bed. I don't think she was there. And she had these 3 pictures on the wall. I'll never forget. And they were just regular size, this old 1970s, 80s, whatever oil paintings that they used to have. And all 3, when I looked at them, were miniature in my mind. And I knew something was wrong. I was like, wait, why are the pictures not big? And I was having this weird, it's the first time I was ever aware of my brain. I was like, something's going on. Was I having some type of anxiety, whatever? And I kind of went on that exploration for a while. And what I found is that, especially now, for me to quiet my brain, which is very hard in the world right now. We're being bombarded by all sides, right? If even when I float, when I do close my eyes, whether it be, and it's weird, the forms of meditation could be when you get in that shower, right? Right before you're kind of in the shower for a minute, or right before you fall asleep, like that 10 minutes where you're in that gray zone. And to keep my focus back so it doesn't fly off the handle, I keep that little blue ball in the middle of my eyes. I go to the blue ball. Just keep going to the blue ball. Like every time you go, I have to do a trick to get me back my brain because my eyes are closed. So I found that where I've been dancing around meditation for so long, and it's because I would give myself the excuses, which now you have put me on blast, as they say, and put me in that position where I can't do that anymore. And my excuse was I fall asleep. What did I say before? I fall asleep. I do this, I do that. I'm looking for ways to get out of it because the truth is,
hey, let's do this. Let me go on a run with you.
Sure.
My life mission is to help people train their minds to live in the present moment more often, because the present moment is where high performance is expressed. All things that are true, beautiful, and good are experienced, and where wisdom is revealed. Okay? So if we can live in the present moment more often, our quality of life will be better. It's my life mission. And so one way to do that is training mindfulness, a la meditation. Like one way to do it is that. And I'd love to do something because you have influence in your world to help you and your community do that. And maybe we can do something on social where we just do like this little, like a little accountability. Like I got my 3 minutes in.
Challenge.
Yeah. Let's go 7 days.
Love it.
Here's how we're going to kick this off, Theo. We'll do a little Instagram live. I'll be as awkward as a human can be, and we'll do it online together. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so, and people like trolls are welcome. It's fine.
Yeah. Now we love it.
Okay.
Can't have the yin without the yang. You always need the other side of everything.
That's right. And then so let's go on a little run.
I would love that. I accept that challenge, and I accept your generosity of doing this, and I appreciate you, and I truly do. And you just have such an incredible way of getting a message across in how just kind of what you know, and that's really appreciated by people like me and other people who are going to listen to this. So please stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother.
So that was Dr. Michael Gervais at the end calling me out on my meditation or on anything about taking care of the mental. And you know what? He's so right. And why I wanted you guys to get to this so we can discuss was, we spend so much time on the physical, right? That's what we do. A lot of us, those who do, and those who don't want to, right? But what we don't really think about is that mental aspect. So after that, and sitting down with him and really kind of be putting on blast about that, I decided that what I want to do and what him and I, what we discussed in there, we want to do together is do some kind of mindset reset, we'll hashtag it mindset reset, and just all of us kind of learn, even if only for a few minutes. And that's what we're going to try to do. Maybe, we're going to set it up on an IG live after this comes out and just get on there and see if we could meditate for 4 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever. And I'm going to bring a bunch of people, who I know prescribe to this stuff. I am not one of them. I have a hard time sitting still. So this is going to be really interesting to me. Maybe it does become part of my daily, especially with all the chaos that's, we're bombarded with at all times. So hashtag mindset reset under hashtag theory pod. I can't believe I just said hashtag twice. So that's what we're going to try to do. Dr. Michael Gervais and I will get together, and we hope you join us. And maybe we could, start feeding our mentals a little and start working that, like we are taught so much to work our physical. Let's work our mental, especially during these times. All right? Big love all.
Amazon is hiring near you. Earn a competitive wage and start as soon as 7 days. No resume or experience required. Health and safety are a top priority with all of our roles and sites, and Amazon is taking precautions in our buildings to keep people healthy. Go to Amazon.com/apply. That's Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.